Welcome back to another episode of that Boat Babe podcast with your favorite boat babe here, MaryAllison. So I tried to record this episode in the cockpit or on the bow, which would have been more beautiful. It's like the best weather outside right now. But like last week, the love bugs have taken over. I can't be out there without them like landing on me and attacking me, and it's just creepy. So I came downstairs. If you hear the air conditioning in the background, it's because the air conditioning's on. And I'm so grateful for our air conditioning, so I'm not going to complain about it. But anyway, I hope y'all have had an awesome week. We are in the midst of hurricane season here in the Gulf Coast, and I'm feeling pretty good about the rest of the season, honestly. I have felt really good about this hurricane season this whole year. I usually can tell intuitively how the season's going to go storm-wise in our area, and I feel like, knock on wood, it's pretty calm because the weeks are ticking by until we are able to sail back to the Bahamas, and I'm extremely excited. This is a dream come true, and the thought and the backstory of how this has all happened and how we're able to go back down island after losing everything in Hurricane Irma made me realize that I have not done a tell-all story, history, timeline of me and why you even listen to me. I mean, a lot of people I know listen to the podcast because they want to just hear about boat stuff, or maybe you're interested in living on board, or maybe you just love the fact that a chick does DIY stuff on the boat all day. There's a whole lot more to that than just those three things. And so I decided that today's episode would be all about that, from boating when I was a kid and how I ended up here on the podcast with you. So, but first I want to announce that I'm so excited, if you did not hear in last week's episode, that my Amazon storefront is live. If you are a boater and you always have a hard time trying to find which products are best for your boat, go over to my storefront on Amazon. It's That Boat Babe, but sometimes they don't make it very easy to find. So I'm going to link the Amazon store right here in the show notes. And then it's also on my Instagram page. If we're not friends on Instagram, go onto your Instagram and find me and let's connect. I am at That Boat Babe on Instagram. Go into my bio and you will see some links. Click the Amazon storefront and go ahead and follow me. And I will get a kickback every single time you order something from my Amazon store. And that only means that I get to provide more content for you, which gives you more help with your boat DIY projects. I have another announcement that I'm really excited about. I am looking for boat babes to interview here on the podcast. So if you have a favorite influencer on YouTube, or if you love somebody on Instagram because of their boating lifestyle, send them a message saying, hey, you need to be on that Boat Babe podcast, and then forward their Instagram page or their YouTube page to me in my DM on Instagram at That Boat Babe. And so we can connect, because I want to add more guests to the show and I want to keep it fun and exciting and share even more stories than I have to offer here on this platform. And so, yeah, forward anybody's information along to me, even if they don't have a huge following, even if they're just, a regular girl out on her boat, but she's got awesome experiences. I want to hear all about it. Okay, so let's hop into this episode about the history of me, MaryAllison. I get this question a lot. I have a lot of people on Instagram and they say, I don't understand. How did you start with boating? Do you boat with somebody who does this and you're just the front girl? Or actually, I just got one that says, and I get this one a lot, unfortunately, but I love boating. I would love to live aboard a boat, but my wife doesn't want to. So I feel you. I totally understand. There's not a whole lot of women in the industry who love this lifestyle. They also don't realize how incredible it can be, because there's, a whole mix of really awesome liveaboards, clean, like I constantly have a dry bilge. My boat doesn't smell. I'm at an amazing dock. Like, you can have this awesome lifestyle in a boat. But then, I mean, there's boats where you're like, wow, you're you're making it by. And that's a little intimidating as somebody who maybe didn't grow up on boats, saying, okay, I'm just going to go hop on and like move on board with this, random person. Living this lifestyle is a unique one for us babes. But also, I have actually encountered this in my life and in the past where I've had a hard time finding a guy that's on board for this lifestyle. I'm not going to get into my family life in this episode. And I also want you to know that it's definitely can be a challenge when you're combining the boating life with somebody who maybe didn't grow up in it, but it is doable, and there are compromises that can be made. And what I've learned over the years is the memories that are made on board way outweigh anything that potentially could be like lost or perceived as, missing while you're living on land. So anyway, let me start from the beginning. So I had a passion for boats that was totally underlying, didn't even realize it was a thing. When I was 9 years old, I had moved. I think that was my 11th house to live in. I was 9 years old, and we were on Lake Wilson in northern Alabama, if I'm getting my facts right. And I had a John boat with a 1 horsepower battery powered little engine on the back. And I would hop into my Snoopy life jacket. I had my whistle, and I guess that was it. That was my everyday life. My dad had bought a 19-foot center console Key West that we had there too. And then before that, we had what we call a Tennessee redneck boat. And I actually just saw one on the beach right here, but it was a different color. And the guy was having such a hard time starting it with his 2 kids in there. I felt so bad. But our Tennessee redneck boat had AstroTurf green carpet. It had those seats where you could push them down and they would spread out into beds, which I don't actually know what that was for. Was that like bench seating back in the day, or did you actually sleep on that thing? And then you could put the windshield back in the middle and, be up in the front laying out. But I mean, it was tiny. So our first story, I guess, family story on that boat was we were going out the Perdido Pass. I was 5 or 6 years old, and my dad looks over at the beach and goes, "Oh my God, nobody's beaching their boat on this beach. That's so stupid. They're missing out on such a gorgeous beach." So dad goes over, beaches the boat in the pass, and we all 3 hop out and go for a walk. And by the time we come back, the boat had beached itself and was beginning to fill with water. My mom basically throws me onto the sand and says, "Don't move," as they try to get their boat back in the water and to get all the water out. And lesson learned, if you see a beach and there's no boats on it, there's a reason. Don't be the only boat. So fast forward, we got our 19-foot Key West, and that was the beginning of what I say, like the production center consoles that you see out there today. But this boat was amazing. I mean, it was great. But man, that thing rode hard. It was a rough ride out there. Around that time, I had moved, gotten the John boat, and I would cruise around the I guess these little there weren't channels at Lake Wilson. You could go back and like, I guess that they'd be called like hollows, but that's not coves. Yeah, that's probably the right word. And I would just go explore like as far back as I could. I would collect little turtles, and I spent my time alone driving around and exploring. And I loved everything about driving. I loved everything about the freedom that boats gave me. And my experience on the Key West was I always was the driver. I've been the driver since I can remember. I mean, of course, there were times when my sister and I would be up in the V berth, or not in the V berth, but like on the front sitting and, cruising the bay. But for the most part, I was driving. by the time I turned 14, I was able to, or my dad allowed me to go out in the Gulf by myself. And the way that I learned red, right, return. So, you've got your channel markers, your green and your red. When you have a lot of waterways, including the intercoastal, it's not always clear which side of the red and which side of the green you go on. A lot of times there's only a red and you don't see the green, or a lot of times you think it's red, right, return, but where the hell am I returning to? So I would go as fast as I could and watch my depth finder. And if it went from 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, I knew I had to go on the other side of the red or the green. And that's how I taught myself red, right, return. And so I was able to go out in the Gulf by myself and experience that piece out there, and watching the dolphins, looking for sea turtles, trying to jump in with sharks, and, the stingrays. And I started sailing when I was around 8, maybe. There was this little boy. He's not little anymore, but I had a huge crush on him. His name's Eamon. We're still friends. And he was my first love, and his dad had a sailboat. And so he had every kind of sailboat. He had like a liveaboard sailboat, a catamaran. He had a little sunfish. So one day his dad went by on the sunfish, and I just waved to my mom, bye. And I just jumped in the water with my life jacket, and went out and got in the boat with Eamon's dad. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was a huge moment for me. That was when I realized there is something more that I'm meant for, and I didn't know it. But that was my first experience with sailing, and Ed, he taught me how to sail, and it was magical. So we continued our summers down here in Perdido with the Key West, and then I drove to Santa Barbara to go to Santa Barbara City College. And I started teaching sailing at the Santa Barbara Sailing Center during the summers. And I got my, I don't know, what is it? Your basic keel course done so I could teach. And I remember the feeling that I had there, that I could go from point A to point B just with the wind. Like no engine, nothing. I was fascinated. And I think that feeling that I felt while I was on the John boat and the feeling I felt that day were the same. It was like, this is just pure freedom. Like, this is bliss. So I started teaching sailing, and on Wednesdays I would race on, I don't remember, some J boats. I don't remember the size, but through the yacht club. And then I started a yacht detail business in the Santa Barbara Harbor with my ex-boyfriend, Nick DeRulac, who is now a captain, and he's on an incredible boat up in New England area, just killing it. So I had this yacht detail business, and I got to know the ins and outs of the boats from the outside to downstairs. And I love organizing. I like cleaning. It's my thing. I love the outcome that you can get from working on a boat. You can take something that's a total disaster and make it absolutely gorgeous, like pristine, almost brand new. And I think that's honestly a gift or an art form, because a lot of people don't have that. And that's something that I was just gifted with, where I'm really good at making things look keepable or sellable. You either want to keep the boat because it's in such great shape, or it's in such great shape that you're ready to sell it because you know it's going to sell. So fast forward, I graduated from City College and drove to Miami. I got on the largest yacht build of the year at the Miami Boat Show in 2006 or 7, I think 7, called True North. And I eventually became the sole stewardess of that boat. And that was the hardest job I've ever had. The captain was difficult to work for as somebody that didn't have a whole lot of experience, only because he was big on the job training, and I needed some kind of direction. So It was a tough one. It was tough. I did nothing in the engine room, nothing in the bilge. I strictly learned about how to take care of the interior and I didn't even really learn how to take care of guests, honestly. I mean, I did, but not really. We had an owner who I learned how to take care of him, but I did a lot of work on the outside with the guys. That's where like my experience with the yacht detail stuff came into play. And that boat sold. We had there's my ice maker if you hear that in the background. We had a price tag on the side of that boat, and people would drive by and go, "Is that the price tag or is that the phone number?" Because it was a little under 20 million, and the boat sold for I think 17.5 to a Croatian oil heir, I guess. He came with his entourage of his attorney, his translator, his banker, a couple friends, and bought the boat in Fort Lauderdale. I hopped off the boat. I didn't feel comfortable staying. I didn't get a good vibe. I didn't understand the vibe I was getting from this guy. I didn't understand the culture in Croatia. I kind of thought I'd probably get kidnapped and never seen again. So I didn't go with the boat. The new captain took it out of the Fort Lauderdale inlet and ran it aground onto the rocks. And it had to be transported by, the transport ship that sinks and you put your yacht on it and it'll transport it, across the Atlantic or Pacific. So it had to be transported to Croatia. So part of me's glad I didn't stay on it. I mean, sinking off the coast of Fort Lauderdale is not terrible, but I mean, I missed that traumatic experience. So after that, I hopped on a 106-foot West ship. It's a sister to a Westport. And that boat was owned by a NASCAR family that had gotten their money from, not to be too detailed, but a handicap transport van invention. So the money was just kind of passed down to the kids, and I was the stewardess. I started dating the deckhand Entre North, and so we hopped on these boats together. So it was a lot of fun. We got to experience a lot of stuff together. I wasn't alone, which was nice. So we got on the West ship, and it was a weird boat. We had a different kind of captain. He really didn't give us any direction, except like he was a little harsh when you maybe did something he didn't like, but you didn't actually know what that was. So we did a charter. The charter was amazing. Like, I thought the charter went really well. Kyle did videography for the guests. It turns out the guests of the charter were neighbors with my uncle's office in Malibu. I mean, like, we had a great time. They also taught me all about tea time and, croissants, however they say it over there. And we had a really great time. Well, unfortunately, there was a diesel leak somehow in the engine room. And now that I'm more experienced with boats, you can fix that. I'm like, what? It's pretty self-explanatory where that's going to happen. So the captain, instead of acknowledging that we had a diesel spill in the engine room, he ignored it and pretended like nothing was wrong. And the guests were furious. They had to sleep upstairs on the floor because the smell downstairs was so terrible. They had to get all of the clothes that they brought dry cleaned, and he pretended like nothing happened. And I was like, this is horrible. Like, these people paid no telling how much money and tipped you, and their experience is shit on the end. And then after that, the final straw that I was like, I'm done. We weren't getting paid. Something was weird with our bank account, or they just never put us on payroll. So we found out we weren't actually getting money. His excuse was, oh, do you have child support or something to pay? And I'm like, wait a second, this is my job. I'm working my ass off for you. And the engine room caught on fire, and my bedroom was right next to it. So we hopped off that boat. And this plays into the podcast episode I did about the prostitutes on board. So Kyle and I go to the airport and we realize the captain's there and we're like, oh shit, we have to hide. So we hide at the airport in Nassau, like behind our bags and behind like anything we could find to hide from him. I don't think he was on the same flight, which was nice. I think he left right before us, but the chef stayed on the boat. So we thought we were scot-free. We hadn't done anything wrong, but we also knew that if we were going to give him some kind of notice, for sure we would not make any money. Like he would not give us a paycheck. So we landed in Fort Lauderdale. I had a panic attack on the airplane going to Fort Lauderdale. It was terrible. And I got to Fort Lauderdale. We were fine. Woke up the next morning, went down to Las Olas and had breakfast at the little French restaurant, which I'm drawing a total blank. If you've been to Las Olas, you're like, duh, it's cafe something. So amazing place. I'm sitting there having a latte and a crepe and the captain calls and I must have had a lot higher of a tolerance to like, what is it called? Like, conflict than I do now because I actually answered. And this is what I said in the previous podcast, if you've heard it, that he's called the FBI and the CIA and we are going to be arrested for stealing $10,000 out of the drawer next to his bed. So basically his bedside table. And I'm like, wait, I didn't steal $10,000. You had $10,000 in your bedside table? Don't we have a safe on board? And you actually legally can't take $10,000 into another country without declaring it. So, sorry? So he called around to every yacht crew agency and tried to destroy our name. But thankfully, Kyle's dad was the number one captain in Fort Lauderdale at the time, and his mom was the number one yacht model. And she was in every magazine. So obviously our name was fine. But it was just the fact that he like went to such extremes to destroy our name when we didn't even do anything wrong. Well, fast forward, we see Sheffy at another boat show or I guess at a marina. I don't know why I was dock walking at a marina once. And there's Sheffy and he explains the whole thing to my dad and I about how he had hired a prostitute. The prostitute brought her pimp and her and the prostitute just drank a little too much and the pimp stole everything on the boat that was valuable, including $10,000 from the bedside table of the captain's bed. So we got out of that one, but it was kind of a disaster of how the industry can be. And it's funny when people talk about Below Deck and I'm like, if you actually knew the actual drama that goes on board, I don't know why they make it up on that show. I'm sitting here drinking a Topo Chico water. They're the most expensive waters ever. I think we calculated it's like $1.20 a bottle. I need to enjoy this. Okay, so after that, I hopped on a yacht. It was an 87 foot Lazara, 84 foot Lazara. Also owned by an oil guy. He inherited his oil. Okay, let me back up. So I hop on the boat. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you the name because the owner's dead and the boat was seized by the bank. So Octane was the Lazara and High Octane was the dinghy. Well, if you remember during the recession of the 2000s, gas prices skyrocketed and everybody was losing their mind. Like the markets were insane. Everybody was losing their mortgages. It was a mess. So anytime we were ass in, med style is the appropriate term, of docking on a boat, we would get yelled at by people so bad. They were so mad at us because the boat's name was Octane. And so, yes, I was on Octane. Octane's owner was a gay man that was straight. So his wife owned an oil company and left it to him because she died. He turned gay or just came out as gay. And I thought I really liked his boyfriend. It was really nice. Like, I didn't have to work for a wife. I didn't have to deal with her hating me because I'm a chick on a boat. So it was great. Well, we had a lot of fun. That boat went everywhere in the Bahamas. I lived there for a long time. And side note, each yacht I was on, I lived in the Bahamas for a long time, indefinitely. Like, that's just where we were. And I remember looking down from the top deck of these boats at these liveaboard sailors. And I went, oh my gosh, I would give anything to be with them. I would give anything to have that sailboat sitting in that cockpit, reading a book, drinking my coffee. And I'm sitting here on a $20 million yacht, $8 million yacht, $12 million yacht going, I would give anything to be with those people. And so that's why this whole experience, I'm kind of jumping around, but that's why this whole experience of me living on this boat and about to go to the Bahamas is humongous. I swear, I can't believe I'm still in the same lifetime after everything that I've done. Okay, so back to Octane. So I really liked the owner's boyfriend, and I Googled him one day, and I found out he was a child sex offender. He was a teacher who had a really scandalous relationship with another male student, and I decided to quit. I said, this doesn't align with anything I believe in. This is creepy. I can't make this guy's bed anymore. I'm sick of cleaning up all the lube in their drawers. Like, as fun as I made it got crushed real fast. It was done. And so Kyle and I hopped off. He went a different way. And actually, no, before this, we both got our captain's license. We had enough sea time to get our 100-ton master, so we got that together. And he hopped off the boat, went one way. I hopped off the boat and moved to Nashville, where my family's from. I became the captain of Alan Jackson's 1964 63-foot burger called Lady J. It was his riverboat. I took over his captain's position, and my dad bought Lady J. And so some people might think, oh my God, you totally got the in. Your dad bought the boat. And it's like, well, I mean, I didn't have to move back to Nashville to run that boat. I actually didn't get paid to run that boat. I had a ton of experience gained from that boat because, I mean, it was a like yacht, but small. I mean, it was a yacht, but it wasn't 100 feet. But I mean, it had every system you'd ever want. I mean, Alan Jackson restores cars and he restores old boats. So he had restored it to pristine condition, original condition. So he had made it look perfect and brand new as if it was built in 1964. It was gorgeous. So I ran Lady J on the rivers, and I honestly always used to look down on myself going, oh, I only have river time. I've only got river sea time. A big thing when you upgrade your sea time is offshore experience. And when you want to grow and get a larger ton captain's license, it's always like, oh, what's your offshore time versus your inland sea time? And it's like, crap, I've got all this inland sea time that I don't have a lot of outside sea time. I learned all I did was communicate with barges, deal with tides. I dealt with fucking river currents. Like, I've lost engines on that river. I lost steering going down the river. There's a lot of experiences I've had. Emergency anchoring, tons of nighttime driving. You think offshore cruising in the ocean is scary? Try doing it in a fucking river, like with logs that aren't seen on the radar and boats that aren't seen on the radar and like No, there's a lot that goes into it. Dams, locks, there's a ton that goes into actually navigating on a river. And ask any barge captain about it, they agree. There's a lot. So I was on Lady J for a long time, years and years. And then I moved back out to California and decided I decided to get sober. Getting sober would have just, was the thing to do because I would have died. So that's a whole story in itself. And so I decided to get sober. And one thing I said I would talk about last week in this episode is my modeling career, because it's a total side note. It's nothing to do with yachting until later on in life. But I started modeling at I was like 14. And I never did any huge, I guess, modeling no, I'm not going to say that. I did some big modeling events. Unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere as a huge career, and I wished it would have. I don't think I had the right foundation, and I didn't have the right direction to go into to make a successful modeling career. Honestly, I think I was too sweet. I was from the South. My mom had no clue how to direct me, and it's a very predatory industry. So kind of like the Croatian guy, I probably would have died. I did some awesome modeling. My uncle owns Malibu Wellness, which is a huge international skincare and hair care brand. Jane Seymour used to model for them, and then I took over after her with some of their marketing. I did some YouTube stuff for them. I won the Miami Beach Model Showcase when I was 14 or 15, and I did a lot of local modeling in Nashville. So fast forward to moving back to California. When I got sober, I started modeling for Playboy. And I did not model in the magazine, and I did not model online. I had a really bad feeling about where the company was going. The internet was booming, and it freaked me out at the idea of what could be put out there that could potentially ruin a future career or my future reputation. I saw that I think a huge percentage at the time of the company had sold, and the Playboy brand was just changing and shifting. I think it was trying to keep up with Penthouse and Hustler. So we called ourselves Playgirls, and I would do the promotional parties for Playboy. So if there was a big club opening in Hollywood, I would be at that club, and I would be representing Playboy. And if there was a huge real estate event at a big house in the Hollywood Hills and Playboy was a sponsor, I would show up with a huge group of girls. And so I got to live the Playboy life at the Playboy Mansion. I didn't live at the Playboy Mansion, but I got to work parties there and live the Playboy lifestyle while it was still, I don't know, the old school Playboy. Like, being at a club, sitting next to Hef and his brother, and going to parties in college where I'd see the girls next door, Holly, Bridget, and Kendra walking around. And it was a fantasy. And it was a really fun fantasy that I look back and I dodged a lot of bullets, a lot of red flags. I was very newly sober when I joined the company, I guess you want to say. I had 90 days sober, and I went to a casting call and I made it. And then I went to another casting call and I made it. So my life looked like working Playboy parties on a Friday night or a Saturday night, waking up, hauling ass back to Orange County to race offshore on a J105 called Hot Ticket, waking up Sunday morning to lead my recovery meeting and bring coffee. And then Monday through Friday was teaching kids to sail at Orange Coast College, UC Irvine, and Seabase. I also led the bird watching tours on a big ass, I think it was like a 30-foot pontoon boat. We had a permit to go back in the estuary, where all the rivers come out into Newport Beach. So I got to go back with all the bird watchers, and we would just count birds all day and take pretty pictures. So that is what my life looked like in early sobriety. Oh, and then I would go to a meeting every day. And since I had a car, I would drive girls to meetings, and we would drink Monsters and smoke tons of cigarettes and eat candy. I mean, we lived the life. I lived on Balboa Island after, oh, I don't even want to go into I'm not going to go into my whole sobriety story, but let's just say Balboa Island fell in my lap. I was driving down the road saying, God, I need help. I need something. I don't know what to do. I'm living on somebody's random boat right now that I'm detailing, living out of my car. You know, I need that perfect place. Like, I want to stay here, and I want to live this life, and I want to live the sober life, and I want to have fun, and I want to teach sailing. And I drove onto Balboa Island. And if you haven't been out to Newport Beach, you have the Balboa Peninsula. So the peninsula is what separates the beach from the or the Newport Beach harbor. That harbor is the largest small boat harbor in the world. It's gigantic. So in that harbor, there's a tiny island. There's two tiny islands called Balboa Island and Little Balboa. So I happened to drive down, and I fell in love with it. There was a miniature Starbucks, a miniature post office. There were miniature shops, miniature restaurants, and everybody was walking. You know, all the houses were like cookie cutter Christmas houses. It was almost like every house was a gingerbread house. They were just gorgeous. And I said, I want to live here. So I pulled up to one of the real estate offices. There was just a random real estate office there, and I said, hey, this is my budget. I need a place to live like right now. And they said, oh my gosh, we have this perfect listing for you. It's off the market. The guy doesn't want to make money off of it. Do you want to get in the golf cart and go look at it? I'm like, oh my God, I get to get a golf cart to go look at this house? Of course. And this person had transformed the garage and I guess like mudroom storage area, which sounds like it's underground, but it wasn't, into a studio. I had a spacious studio, and I paid a perfect amount for it. It was in my budget. I parked the car and bought a beach cruiser and a paddleboard, and I beach cruised or paddled to work every day. And I taught sailing. And then I raced Tuesdays and Thursdays in the beer can races on Hot Ticket. And that boat was sponsored by Vineyard Vines and Gill Racing. So we had all the gear, and the boat was the most beautiful pink because since it was sponsored by Vineyard Vines, we painted it pink like Vineyard Vines. It was just magical for me. So after that, I moved back to Nashville. I look back and I have a hard time. I'm torn. I wish I would have stayed, but I know that my career wasn't going to be going anywhere else. So I moved back to Nashville and continued to work on Lady J and continued to stay sober, and a lot of hardships happened. I had gotten into a really abusive relationship, and I'm not going to go into it because it involves family, and thank God the abuser is not in my family, but it was traumatic for a very long time. I had to hide myself on social media. I had to hide myself on Facebook. I had to keep my friends really close because the abuse was going to them as well, and my family. And by the grace of God, I got to move down to Tortola and be away from all the drama that was just icky. So I moved down to Tortola and I realized this is where all the liveaboard people are. Like, these are the people that I saw when I was in the Bahamas. These are the ones that are on anchor, and they're my age. And they're like living this dream that I've always had. So I became really good friends with, so many people. Wind Traveler, if you follow her on Instagram, her blog was one of the first blogs ever out there about like the liveaboard lifestyle. Scott, her ex-husband, is still my boss. Where the Coconuts Grow on Instagram. Jody, she's my very best friend, living on St. Thomas. I have a handful of friends that like showed me the path and the way of this life. And that was really helpful because when you don't see it and you can't draw it out and you have a really hard time even imagining what you're wanting, it can be really difficult to manifest where you're trying to go because you kind of have a blank slate and you're like, I don't even know how to fill in the details. So that was a really, really big eye opener of the life that I knew I wanted to live. So I became a charter captain for Aristocat Charters, working for Brittany and Scott. And it was the best job I've ever had. Hands down. I got to combine my passion with the hospitality industry on boats and being a captain. And I know they kind of sound like they go hand in hand, but when you're doing it in such a small space on a day-to-day basis versus like a week-to-week basis or a year-to-year basis on an actual yacht, like every day and every experience was different. So I would pick people. I was on their World Cat. It was a 32-foot World Cat called Catapult. And I would pick people up at the cruise ship dock and we would have a whole day together, or they would come to me and Annie Key. And it was nice because, first of all, I didn't have a crew. It was just me. Like, I got to do whatever I wanted. I got to make these plans. I got to drive the boat. And that meant that I got to teach how to drive. And usually I'd pick one of the kids and they would help dock, or usually if it was like a little girl and she couldn't believe that this was my job, I would be like, perfect, you're my mate today. Like, you're going to learn how to drive. So every couple that came on board and every family, I got to create their day for them and I got to help make their memories and make their day. And, we had like the crazy Americans that would just get shit-faced and jump off the cruise ship dock. And like, that was an experience and so much fun. I mean, by the end of it, you're just like being kissed by 8 men and they're just handing you wads of cash and you're throwing them on the dock at Peter Island just so you can get the catapult back home before dark. I mean, the days don't get better than that. It was so much fun. When you would have people from the UK and they would secretly get hammered all day and you're like, how the heck do you still act so normal? And I know that you're 3 sheets to the wind. So, I mean, island hopping on that boat was just a dream of mine. And I had a lot of family stuff going on at the same time, which was difficult, but I can't believe I made it through. That boat and that island kept me afloat. They kept me dreaming big and they kept me planning for the future. So all of a sudden I'm in Tennessee and we turn on the news and we're watching a hurricane form in the Atlantic, which turned into the largest Atlantic hurricane on record. And all we could see was our lives being destroyed. It was devastating. I still could cry about it today. I never wanted to leave that island. I never meant to leave. And I couldn't go back. Physically, with my circumstances, I wasn't able to go back and I was heartbroken. My Jeep, I had a red 4-door Jeep and it was fading, so it was turning pink. So I actually got to have a pink Jeep like I'd always wanted since I was a little girl. It caught on fire and flooded in a tropical storm. Our house, we were living in a house at the time because I had my eye on a couple boats. They all fell over or dismasted during the storm. All of my belongings smelled like cigarette smoke when I got them back. It was disgusting. Whatever that storm had in it was sick. It was not a typical storm. Everything smelled like mold and cigarettes, even though there was not a cigarette around. My dreams were gone. It was horrible. So I had nothing, but I had my dreams. I'd seen what I'd wanted, and every night I'd go to sleep envisioning the aft cabin of the boat that I knew I was going to have one day. I knew it had a weird part in the couch which pulled out into a bed. I knew where the port lights were on the stern in my mind, in my vision, my third eye. I knew the mast wasn't in the middle of the room. I knew it was in the wall, like hidden in the wall. I knew it was going to be a center cockpit. And I kept looking for this boat. Every day I would go on Edwards Yacht Sales, Yacht World, Facebook groups, anywhere I could to find this boat. And I flew to see similar boats like this one and gained a lot of perspective around, how people care for their boats, what people say about their boats. A lot of people talk shit about their boats when they're trying to sell them to you. A lot of people have really great stories when they're trying to sell them to you. I mean, like, you can tell a lot about a boat by the owners and what they say about it. So I started selling boats online, in the mix somewhere. That didn't last very long, because I was such a doer. I had a really hard time sitting at the computer working for somebody that I'd never even seen. So I moved to Orange Beach, Alabama. We have family history here. It's paradise. I mean, like, literally, like, if you want to go somewhere where there's no rules, everybody's a good old boy in their big trucks. It's the sport fishing capital of the South. Awesome shipyards or boat yards. I mean, there's more resources here for boats than most places on the Gulf Coast. And so I moved here, and after the depression cleared eventually, I decided to put myself out there, and I started my yacht detail business again. I realized here in this area, female captains aren't taken seriously, and I'm not a fisherman. I didn't grow up fishing. So I decided to go back to the basics. I started a yacht detail business, which turned into a yacht management company. It was not long lasting. But what I would do was I focused on huge refits. So if you had a big boat with mostly an unlimited budget, I would refit it to the point where you would either want to keep it or sell it. So basically I was using what I learned at Waterfront Yacht Detail in Santa Barbara for a bigger career. And I had a lot of fun with that until Hurricane Sally, where I realized how ungrateful so many people are for people that help them. And I don't want to say that destroyed my heart for the business. It just reminded me that if they're not even going to care about the effort that I put into taking care of their boats, I got to take care of my own. We've got a lot here. My family's stuff is here. My stuff is here. I just was like, I can't take care of your shit if you're not even going to help me out. So I think I totally missed the part about our boat falling in our lap. So in that time, I had traveled to St. Augustine to look at an Endeavor, just like ours. And the woman just shit on the boat for 5 hours. Not literally, but she just talked crap about it for a really long time. And I didn't have an opinion of it. I needed to hear every detail. I just nodded and smiled. And I didn't have a connection to them when I left, but I'd gained a lot of information. So I got back to my hotel and I look out the window and I see a 50-foot Gulf Star for sale with a huge phone number on the side. And I call the phone number and the woman answers and says, I can't show you the boat right now, but you're going to have to talk to our broker. Her name is Melanie. Melanie Sunshine Neal. I've interviewed her before. That was an older podcast episode. I need to do another interview with her. But she's a huge yacht broker here in the South. She's lived on boats her whole life. And if you need a yacht broker, contact her. Melanie Sunshine Neal, Sunshine Cruising Yachts. Google that. Pretty sure that's her business name. And I don't want to quote the website because I'm not 100% how she has it laid out, but go Google Sunshine Cruising Yachts. So I talked to Melanie. I told her what I wanted. I told her what I'd looked for and what I'd looked at. A week later, I go on Edwards Yacht Sales. At the time, she was working for Edwards Yacht Sales. And I see this exact Endeavor, the one that I'm living in, sitting on and talking to you on right now. And I said, Melanie, where did you get this Endeavor? She goes, oh my God, I just listed it, but they live in the Bahamas on it. So I am not doing a quick sale with it. It's just hanging out on my listing page. I was like, oh my God, well, I want this boat. Like, I want to talk to the owners. I want to see the boat. Let me know what I have to do. In that time, I had gotten in a lot of debt trying to protect myself from the abuser that wouldn't go away. And I ended up having to sell my condo to pay money to save my life. It's okay. And so I had a lot of money left over, a lot. I had about 50 or 60, no, it was about 100,000, I think I had gotten from my condo. I had had it for a really long time. So after paying off what I needed to pay off, I said, Melanie, I'm going to sell my condo. And she goes, okay, go ahead and sell it. These people aren't going to be back on the boat till March. And I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. Well, come January 4th, my condo floods. We had 4-degree temperatures in Nashville, and I forgot to put the electricity in my name. I was devastated because it was about to go on the market. And it was also a huge blessing at the same time because I refit the whole downstairs pretty much. And I was able to have insurance pay for all of it. And then it took a couple months for all the repairs to be done. And I was able to market my condo for $15,000 more than I would have if I would have listed it in the winter. So it was actually a perfect scenario that happened. It was a disaster that turned into a miracle. Well, Melanie called, told me the boat's ready to be seen. My condo still was not sold. I went to look at the boat. I agreed to buy it. The next day, my condo sold. I had the money in my account by the time the survey was complete. And the thing that got to me the most, and I get chills, is the memory I have of sitting in that cockpit with Melanie and the 2 owners from Canada, who I just adore. And I said, yeah. They go, do you want to buy the boat? And I said, yeah, I do. Like, I want to buy it. And they both just started crying. They were sad to leave what they had and so happy because I think they weren't willing to sell it to somebody who they knew wasn't going to take care of it. They really wanted somebody to live on it. They wanted somebody to take care of her. And they were only technically the second owners. I think this boat was in a charter company for the first 10 years of its life down in Tortola, which was cool. But I was able to gain a good relationship with them, ask questions, but I didn't bombard them after I bought the boat. There was a lot of stuff I had questions about, but I knew respectfully they'd moved on. They were buying an RV. They were going to enjoy grandparent time with their grandkids. It was not my place to ask a ton of questions. So I joined the Endeavor Forum on Facebook, and it's been the best resource page ever. All of our Endeavor people are incredible. All the owners are so kind. And any question I've ever had about this boat, I get answered on there, or I just go on YouTube and I can type it in. So, yeah, that's a lot in my career, and I haven't talked about it in a long time. So back to modeling, I did start working for a company that was based out of Tampa, a marketing company. I'd found them at the boat show. I'm not going to say their name because we had a falling out. But I was doing amazing boat walkthrough videos. If you go on YouTube, you might be able to find me. You can type in Scout it was a 50-foot Scout LXF or LFF. Yeah, LXF. Uh, don't even want, I'm sorry. I really don't even want to tell you who it's with. Only because it was it was heartbreaking. Like, I actually found the career that I fell in love with, doing really amazing boat walkthroughs. We were going to do factory walkthroughs. I was their boat babe. You know, it was a male led business, and I was the girl. You know, I was the model, I was the face. I wanted to be with that company, and I wasn't respected. I never even got paid like they said they would pay me. Basically, they saw me as a piece of meat, and I left crying. And I called my friend, and I didn't understand what was happening. And she said, they don't respect you. You're just a piece of meat to them. Um, this isn't the business for you to be in right now. And I don't necessarily think it's not the industry for me or the business to be in, but working for them was not it. They were very young. It's a startup company. But their videography team was the best team I've ever seen. The videos they created were incredible. And their marketing platform it's incredible. It's amazing. I mean, they market every boat and every yacht and everything. So if I can get back into that, I will. If you are interested in having me do a walkthrough or a boat walkthrough, factory walkthrough, I don't care. I'll talk about paint. I'll talk about sanding teak. Then contact me, because I'm totally interested in doing that. That's something I haven't thought about in a long time. It's kind of a sore subject, because it was actually, being on film and doing walkthroughs was really challenging for me. It was something I had never been taught to do. I mean, I'd been taught to model, but I hadn't been taught to talk. So it was actually the hardest thing I'd ever done, and it was the most rewarding. So if you are a company out there and wants a walkthrough, let's chat. I would love to do it for you. So now I'm sitting here on Rhiannon. I have a new generator, new air conditioning units, new hot water heater, all kinds of fun stuff that I've refit, putting in a new freezer soon. I am working on this podcast platform, building YouTube, and I'm building this brand. You know, this brand feels like it's me. It feels like easy. It feels home. I like it. And so I'm going to take it with us down island. I am so excited to be leaving in 3.5, 4 weeks for the Bahamas to head back to Tortola to continue to work for Scott with Aristocat Charters. I'm going to continue to build this brand, continue to podcast, and share all the content with you along the way. I hope that you've enjoyed my life story. I have not done an hour podcast, I don't think ever. If you have any questions, comments, love to share, then follow me at That Boat Babe on Instagram. DM me. I go through my DMs and I do respond to every single one of them. If you know a boat babe who needs to be interviewed and needs to share her story on the water, then I want to hear it and I want to interview her. Go ahead and follow my Amazon storefront, because it is the easiest way to find all of your boat needs in one place. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I love you so much. And share this video with a friend, and I will talk to you again next week. I love you. Mwah.